Good day, everybody. It's your girl Gift Code, and today I'd want us to build this simple to-do list together. All right, it's actually a very simple one. As you can see, you have three input field here, and some buttons to add and to delete. Okay, so let's say for example, I want to add a to-do, go shopping. Yeah, who doesn't like to go shopping? And I would like to add, I want to go shopping on my birthday. Yay! And I want to go shopping around 4:30 or something. You can just put any time of your choice. Let's just say 4 o'clock, okay, p.m. And then I can add it up. So as you can see, once I click on the add button, it comes here to the last end of the page and it adds up, right? So this is exactly what we want to do. So let's get going. So here I have my VS Code opened and I have a folder that I've actually included on it, but the folder is empty. So I can go ahead and open some files inside the folder that we'll be needing for this project. Index.html, we have style.css, and let's say main.js. You can give it any name of your choice, don't forget that. So we have this. So let me just collapse this and this close this welcome page. Okay, so first thing I'll generate my boilerplate, okay, which is just like an inbuilt HTML documentation, okay, to tell the browser that you're writing an HTML file. I can give it any title of my choice. To do dash lists. Okay, so to generate this, just click on shift 1, then you press enter to generate this documentation for you or something. So I have this. Okay, don't forget, let's link our CSS file to our HTML. So I can just link and style.css. okay, as you can see, VS Code is actually suggesting for me what he believes that I would want to type or I want to type at that point in time. It's actually an extension called autocomplete or auto rename, something like that. So please, you might need to Google some extensions, some useful extensions for for HTML and CSS on VS Code. Okay, just Google something like that so to help you to write your code very fast. Okay, so now I linked my CSS file already to the HTML, and then it's also okay for me to link my JavaScript file by using the script tag. Okay, so you can use script tag and I give it the name main.js. Excuse me. So I guess we're good now. Everything is linked for now. I'm going to save this. So we have this already. So the first thing we need now is this paragraph tag. This is paragraph tag, or we can just give it a heading tag in our home case, so it will be different a little. So let me just give it an heading tag, so it will be bolder. I'm using H3, which is kind of wrong because on your HTML file, you should actually have H1 before H2. That's the best practice, then H3. But here I'm just jumping to H3, okay? Let's just use that for now. I hope you guys will forgive me. So let's call it to do manager. Yeah, so it will look different a little from what we're using from our sample projects. Okay, so we have something like this. And then we need these three input field. Okay, these are input field. We need these three, so let's just get that here. So I'll call it input field. Okay, the default input type is actually text. Okay, and that is exactly what we need because here we want our users to be able to type like a text. So it's okay, we can leave this. And we need a placeholder. You notice that we have something inside this input field called to do name. It can be called anything, whereby if our user start typing, it kind of goes off. So that's called a placeholder. So we need something like that. So let me get that placeholder and then call it to do name, right? Okay, so let's give this a class so that we can be able to style it on our CSS. Yes, let's give it a class now so we don't need to come back to it or something. So we can just give it any name, but let me just call it name inputs because it sounds cool. So let's go ahead and create other input field. Okay, but this time around we don't need the text type because this is actually a calendar, like a date type. Okay, we have something like that too on HTML, which is called dates. Okay, so we don't really need this placeholder because automatically it has its own default placeholder. So we're just going to use the type alone and also give it a class name so we can be able to target that too on our styling this thing and call it date inputs. Okay, so let's get the last input field. This time around we need time, not text, not okay. There's something called date time in JavaScript. In HTML there's something called date time. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about. This date time local. It actually have the, once you click on this, it will give you both the date and the time together, so you don't need to specify date time separately. Okay, I actually tried that, but it has some default settings, something like that. Like I was saying something like a capital T, which I still don't know what it's for. I've been trying to take it off, but it's not been working. Sort of the time this video is being recorded, I've not been able to achieve that. But I believe that once I go into my knowledge base or something, I should be able to do that. But for now, let's just use the date and time separately. I don't want dates, I want time. Okay. Automatically it has its own default placeholder, so we don't need that. So let's give it a class too, a class name. Let's call it time input, right? Okay, so we have something like this. So lastly, I guess we need the add button. So let's get a button and call it add. Yeah, I guess this is fine. This is fine. So let's view what, let's control S to save what we have, and then let's view it on live server. Okay, live server helps you to like view your code or view your work, your projects on your browser, okay, at real time. So whenever you're making any changes here, it kind of reflects on your browser real time. Okay, that's with the help of an extension called live server. So if you don't have that, you might need to install it. It's called live server. Okay, this extension here called live server. All right, so let's go live and see what we've done so far. So once I click on this live server, it took us here. Now we have to do manager, which looks better, and we have our input field and the add button. Okay, but once I add something, let's say go shopping here, and I select a date and I pick the time, and then I click on this add button, it does nothing. Okay, that's because this is an HTML web page for now. It's this static. So we need to make it functional using JavaScript. All right. So I guess we're done here. So let's go straight to JavaScript. So what we want to do is that when we click on this add button, we want all this information to be rendered on the web page. All right. So how do we do that? First, we need to target all this information first. We need to target this field. Like, okay, we want this information on this field, this information on this field, this one on this field to be rendered. So we need to target all this input field. Okay, so let's give it a different class name, because I actually gave it this one in order to style it with CSS. I like when I want to use JavaScript to style my elements, I like giving it a class name that has something JS. I don't know. Well, it kind of sounds cool to me though. So let's just give it this class name, this JS class name or something, right? So I can just call this one input dash btn. Yeah, it's supposed to be a button. Let me just call it a button. I don't know. So you can give a particular element as much class names as you want, right? So I'm calling this imp.js. Let me just call this due dash date dash input. Oh, that sounds long. That looks long, but it's actually more detailed. Like at least you know what that input field is talking about, right? Due dash time dash input. Okay, does that make sense? So now I have this input name given to it. So I cannot target my elements with this input name on my JavaScript file. Okay, so we want to target all this input field in our JavaScript. And to do that, there are various methods to do that. We can use get elements by class. We can use query selector, but I don't know. I like using query selector. So we need to make reference to the DOM, which is the document element, document object. So we need to make reference to it that we're getting this from the document elements. Okay, so we're saying document.query selector. Okay, then I'm going to like, don't forget your class selector, since I'm using a class and not an ID. So we're using these dots, which is a CSS class selector. Okay, and then I'm going to select the name. Okay, so I like copying the name so I don't make mistake with names, like giving it two different names and having issue later on. I don't know why I'm just swinging left and right. So I'll paste this here. So we have this already selected, but then that means if I want to use this input field later in my code, I will keep writing all this long code, which is not what I want. Okay, so the best practice is for us to like, let's give this value, let's give this information to, let's save it into a variable. Let's save it to a variable that will help us to like get it, so that whenever we need this information, we just need to get the variable name and then we'll be able to get what is inside, right? So I'm going to give it a const because I'm not sure I'll be changing the name of this variable later on. Okay, so let me just call it input. Oh, let's just call it input element. I guess that's okay. Input element. Does that really make sense? Yeah, that's okay. Input element to be equals to. So now what we are saying here is that all this information, we're saving it in this variable called input elements. Okay, so whenever I need this information, I just need this name, this variable name, and I have it. All right. So now by the time we do this, what we're really getting is this field. Now we're just targeting this field, but what we need is the value, which is the information that the user entered on this field. The value that is being entered, the information that is being entered on this field, that's what we want. And then to do that, don't forget your curly braces, your semicolon, please, to terminate a line of code in JavaScript. Okay, to do that, what we need is this input field, which is the field itself, right? The input element, which is the field itself, but then we need the value of this input field. So this is what we need, not just the field. We need the value. Oh, why is it doing this? This is what we need, not just the field, we need the value. Okay, but then as I said before, we can't be writing this input element dot value everywhere, so it's better for us to just put it also in a variable and get it whenever we need it. So this is exactly what we want. So we can do this thing for the remaining 3 input field. So let's just go ahead and make it faster, because I don't want this video to be too long. So I can call this the second one, I can just call it date input to just make it different from the other input. Date input element. Date input element to be equals to document.query selector. Don't forget your quotes and your class selector. Oh, sorry. And then I'm going to pick this so I don't make mistake. I'm picking this first class name. Yep, this is what I want. Okay, so I can go ahead and do const. You can just call it due date or something. Due date, right? I can just give it const due date to equals to this date input field, this date element dot value. Do the same thing. Const. Let's go this time input element to be equals to document.query selector. Oh, don't forget your quote and your class selector. And then I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it right here. All right. Also, I'm going to do const due time. Yeah, I want it to be descriptive enough. Call it time input field dot value. Yeah, right. I guess we're okay. So this is exactly, we've targeted all this input field, getting their value each from getting the value from each input field. So this is what we want. All right. But then don't you think we should actually collate this into a function? Because now we have so many code that is almost doing the same thing over and over again. So for as much as the user is clicking on that add button, this code keeps giving us the value, it keeps targeting the value for us to use. So it's better we include all this in a function ES place, so we can be able to use it over and over again without necessarily typing it all over. So let's just call this function to do, which sounds better, and then open. Okay, we can come here and then close it here. Okay, so let me just indent this so that it can just space. So this is what we have now. We've collated all this inside the function called add to do, right? So we can be able to, whenever we call the function name, we get access to all this at once and not necessarily calling them one after the other. Does that make sense? Now we've targeted all this information. We've targeted the value of this test field. Okay, now what do we need? We actually need something that will help us collate these values together, so we don't have it scattered all over. Okay, and that's the work of a variable. Okay, so we need a variable that will help us collate all these things together first. Okay, so it doesn't need to be in a function. Let's make it a global variable so we can access it anywhere in the code. So let's say let's just call the variable to do. Let's just call it to do list. That one will do. Okay, we have a const variable to do list, right? Okay, so what do we want to save inside this variable? if you notice, we are not just getting a value, we're getting like numerous values, like the name, the date, and the time. Okay, this sounds more like an array. So we're actually getting an array, like an array of items. Okay, but then we're not just getting array of items, because now the user might decide to enter 10 different to-dos. Okay, and then that means we're having a name, to do name for this particular go shopping. The time will be different, the date will be different. Another to do, we have another name, the time will be different, the date will be different. So the best thing for us to do is to use an array of objects, because object give us access to what we call key value pair. It makes us to have a property, it gives us access to a property and also the value. Okay, just that we can have the property, the name of the to-do, and the value of the to-do, right? Okay, so don't forget, we denote our array with square brackets and our object with curly braces like this, right? So let me just terminate this. So this is what we're trying to do. So inside, we need a key, which is a property. You can give it anything you want, but let me just call it name, because we're actually dealing with a to-do name, right? And then I'm going to give it a static value for now, so we can be able to like make it dynamic later in our code. But for now, let's just make it static. Let's just give it something like make dinner, right? This is what we have here. And then I have something like time, so I can just call it anything of my choice though, but let me just call it due time. I mean due date first before time. You can arrange it however you want. And then this due date, the calendar, the calendar formats, excuse me, the calendar formats might actually be different, so you can like give it any format you want it to come out on the web page, any format. However, I want to give mine 2023 October. I want the year first, the month, and then the date, the day rather. All right, so you can decide to use slash instead of dash, is left for you. And then let me call the other one due time. I really don't want this video to be too long, so and let me give it I want to make dinner around 7:30 p.m. all right, so this is what I have here. So we have all this information collated in a variable called to-do list. All right, okay, let's have one more, so like we can be able to walk through all of them or something. Let's have one more. Okay, here let me have the name to be wash dishes. Yes, after dinner you wash dishes. Should I say wash dinner? So sorry, wash dishes. And then let's say due date, same day, 2023, 10/17. Okay, due time, let's say by 9:30 you should be done with dinner, so you should be doing your dishes by then, 9:30, if that is okay. So yeah, so we have these informations now. Okay, this is exactly what we wanted. We have all our information stored in a variable. So but then this, we don't really want it to be here. We want to add it up, like we want to like push it into this function, so that whenever that add button is being clicked, okay, it kind of render all those information on the web page. That is what we want. So there's something we called push. It's a push method. There's something called push method in JavaScript. Okay, it allows you to add an item to an array, or to just add an item to something. Okay, like to an array, to an object, whatever, you can add an item to something. Okay, so that's what we call push. So we'll be using it here. We'll be adopting that method here called push. Okay, so don't forget, this is the name of our variable where we have all those information stored. And then we want to be pushing. So subsequently, aside these two that we have here, a user can be able to push as much as he or she wants. So we're going to use the push. Okay, and don't forget, we're actually pushing an object, not an array. If it's an array, we're going to use the square brackets, but since it's an object, we're going to use the curly braces straight up. I don't know if that makes sense. So what are we pushing here? We actually specify that name, make dinner, due date. So does that mean we're going to do the same thing? No, we're going to make it dynamic now, so the user can have option of pushing whatever he or she wants to. But then this property needs to be the same, because now we're saying that all the names, which is the value of what the user is going to enter, is going to, all the to-do name is going to be stored here in name. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So here I can say name, but now I want to make it dynamic, so we're not giving it exactly what is going to push, right? So we're making it dynamic by calling it name. So on this name variable, just push whatever you have or whatever the user enter, just push it there. Okay, on the due date, which is what we have, don't forget, which was what we stipulated on our object variable. Okay, I need to take it slowly now, right? I'm so sorry. I'm trying to see if this video can be shorter. I don't really want it to be long. That's it. Okay, now just push due date. Okay, and the due time, I want you to push due time. So this is what we have here. What we are invariably saying is that this to-do list, which is our object, okay, we want to push every information. To do, push, okay, is a method. And then we want a name to be named, due date of any date the user enter, and the time to be any time the user enter. Okay, but then we can actually simplify this. There's something we call the structuring in JavaScript. It helps us to like simplify our code. Like we kind of made codes together instead of like giving it one. Okay, since they have the same name, okay, like we have the variable name, the property name, which is also the same thing as the variable name, we can kind of merge them together. It's still the same thing, they do the same thing. So here, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clean this up, take this off, and then take this off. It's still the same thing. So what we're saying is that in the variable of name, okay, the user can enter anything he wants, which is also name, a to-do name. In this due date variable, the user can enter whatsoever he or she wants, which is also a date information. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I really hope I'm making sense. Okay, so this is it. We have this information, but let's just console log this and see what we've been doing since. Excuse me, please. Let's console log to-do list. Okay, this is what we want to console log and see. Okay, let's console log this. Okay, but before then, don't forget, we actually made it that is when the user click on the add button, right? On this page, after entering it, is when they click on this add button, we want to display all this information, right? So we need to go to this HTML. On this add button, we need to give it what we call on click method. Is more like a function, okay? It's telling the file, which is the HTML, that once the user click on this add button, okay, we want you to render all this code that is being kept under this function tag. I don't know if I'm making sense. Okay, I really hope I am. What did I just do? Okay, let's just add it up. Add to do. It's a function. That's the name. So that's what we're telling we're invariably telling it that whenever a user should click on this button, please go to this add to do function, okay, and carry out all the necessary code or the tags that is inside the function. Does that make sense? So let me save this. Let me Ctrl S. Let me come here and save this. So let's go to our live page and then let's inspect so we can see on the console what we are doing. Come to this console. So let me add something like go shopping. Just give it a random date, random time, and then when I click on this add, are you seeing it now? If you check here, let me click on add again. If you check here, we have 4 items because I've added it twice on my battery. We have 4 items